it's clear that this year's Michigan-Ohio State game is personal, and he simply described it in one way. He goes, I hate him. Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 57 of Bando's Breakdowns. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. It is the last episode in the month of August. That's right, the last episode in the month of August. We are going on hiatus next week. In fact, the entire network is going on hiatus next week because we are going to be doing some NFL preview style shows for the NFC, AFC, and various league awards as well. So this show is going to take a week off. And you might be wondering, for those of you out there who are loyalists to me, Zam, what are you going to do about the Illinois Western Illinois preview? Don't worry, I'll have that covered on Bando's Blitz and Zinger Part 2 to supplement that, as I will be at that game. And then we will do a full recap of that game and the Duke preview, if you will, on the first episode back from the hiatus. So for those of you who are worried about that, or who were worried about that, seeing when's your Western Illinois preview going to be, we'll get to it. Don't worry. I'm gonna go through all that at a later date, but just wanted to get that out of the way first. For those who may have been wondering, where's all your Illinois stuff going to go? Well, for the first week alone, it's going to go on the other supplemental things that I do off this show. So just wanted to give you guys a quick programming note that this show will be off next week, but we will be back to begin the month of September. Okay, with that out of the way, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Minute Podcast Network. Only a couple of subscribers away from 1,000. At last check, we were at 2 subscribers at the time this is being recorded. By the time this comes out, we could already be at 1,000. So if we hit 1,000, congratulations to all of us. We can now get the channel monetized for more opportunities for growth for everybody involved here at ETB, et cetera, et cetera. So just something to bear in mind as well. If you like the work that I do, or if you like the work any of the other hosts do on any of the other shows, please be sure to give us a shout over there as well. You can listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcast. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, and so much more. So again, if you're on the road, if you're listening to the show, pop in your earbuds or headphones. You can listen to me while you're on the go. That's super easy to do, and that's also something that I think is a nice tool. That way you don't have to interrupt your workday to listen to me. You can just put me in, still do all your work or do what you need to do, and carry about your day. As this show is only about 30 to 45 minutes every single week, I like to keep it very simple in that regard as well. Also wanted to remind you guys a few other things too, that you can follow the show across social media at Bando's Breakdown. Very important. That page had a huge week this past week with 2 massive reels. Of course, one to Dana White and one to Hamza Chimaev. So shout out to all of you guys for all the support across all my Instagram feeds and just social media, period, regarding UFC 319. We'll get into what happened with UFC 319 and my week as a member of the media, and just kind of how everything played out. And we'll talk about potentially what events I can maybe cover in the future, and just kind of what's next for me on that front, as I'm sure a lot of you that are listening to this have a lot of questions as to what could possibly be next in that regard, as I got a lot of positive feedback from both of those. So shout out to everyone there, and shout out to not just everybody there, everybody who attended the event, and everybody on social media who either came up to me or sent me a private message to let me know how much they appreciated the coverage I had this past week. So shout out to all you guys there. All right, now we continue on with the show itself, of course. So shout out to all you guys for listening to me ramble there, just on a few housekeeping items, but hopefully all that makes sense and so much more. I guess one final one before we get started. For those of you who have never seen me before, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and the TV Network co-host. You've seen me across a lot of shows over the years, but right now I'm currently on Bando's Breakdowns, the relaunched version of the MMA Outsiders. There'll be an announcement coming soon about the future of that show as we get a shakeup in the co-host chair. So excited to reveal more when the time comes. And then, of course, I have took over now with Nick Morganson to host ETB Sports over here on the YouTube channel as well. So the two main shows you'll see me on now are these two shows, and then actually, I guess I can just say part of it. The MMA Outsiders will officially be moving to Playback. Episode 124 was the last episode that will be seen in full on YouTube. It'll still be available over audio. That is all I will get into about that for now, but I just figured I would mention that. Still catch all my written work over at MMA Knockout on Sports Illustrated and Field Level Media, as well as all my collegiate content over at the Sporting News, which is only going to ramp up as the college football season begins this weekend with week 0. Week 1 is next week, so I'm sure it's going to be lighter on the coverage front this weekend because there's no Big Ten teams in action, but there's still going to be news for sure. So just something to bear in mind as well as we get closer and closer to week 1 actually starting. That'll officially begin 1 week from Thursday. Well, actually, excuse me, 1 week from yesterday, rather, that week 1 will begin because this comes out on Friday, of course. So just something to bear in mind there. But let's get into it. Zain's overview. What are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about my experience at UFC 319. We're going to talk about my experience as a member of the media. We'll briefly recap the card. We kind of recapped it on ETB Sports, so I don't want to say too much other than what I've kind of already said about the fights. But we'll go a little deeper. I'll give you some thoughts. What I think of who Hamza Chimaev's next opponent could be, given some new fight announcements that have recently been revealed within the last few days regarding UFC Vancouver. We'll get into some MLB rights shakeups that's going to completely change the entire league from a TV standpoint. We'll get into that. We'll also get into Jeremiah Smith's recent comments about Michigan, how much he has a disdain for them. It's a very brief answer, but figured we would include that in there as well as the hype to the game has officially begun, even though Thanksgiving is over 3 months away now, but people are still getting excited, or the anticipation is already beginning to build, considering that Michigan is supposed to be very good. And of course, Ohio State just won the national title. So we'll get into that. I'll give my opinion on whether I think Bryce Underwood will be the starting quarterback, given a recent video that circulated to celebrate his 18th birthday. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some pretty recent breaking news that Jake Paul is going to be boxing Gervonta Davis. And I'll talk about what I think that means for the sport and why I think it's ultimately a bad look for both guys, and a few other things as well. But enough of me rambling on. Let's finally get into it here. Let's lead with covering the UFC as media. So I don't think a lot of people have really done a full-on review on what it's like to be a member of the media. Of course, James Lynch has done videos on this before. I think he's the only one, though, that's really pulled back the curtain as to what covering a UFC event as a credentialed member of the media is like. So I'm just going to put it to you straight. So it's very interesting if you've never done it. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that you see that the average person doesn't see, and really it's one day, if you really think about it, it's one day where the only people who have access are the people covering the fight, and the rest of the week is public fan events, and then of course the fight itself. But the objective is to still ask questions and interact and stuff like that. So I'm going to get into it. So we go to the fighter hotel on the first day, which would have been Wednesday, and media day is 5 hours. You go through like 11 or 12 fighters, and the media just ask them questions about the upcoming fight, what they think, how Chicago is, who they're interested in fighting next, which to me is weird if you don't know who you're fighting next, because you haven't fought the guy who you're supposed to fight or the girl. So that was strange. Um, but it's more so just to get as much interview content as possible because some people are writing stories, some people are using it just for YouTube, some people are using it for shows, and some people are using it for social. So I asked, I'm just going to be transparent. And sometimes this happens. You just learn about it as you go. I only asked two questions at Wednesday's media day. One was to Jeff Neal, which is just an okay question, and the other one was to Dricus, which I think he gave a pretty good answer about him being the betting underdog. Obviously, he ended up losing the fight, but I thought his answer was pretty good. But yeah, you basically just sit there 5 hours, record what you want when you want. There's food. You can talk to the other media members. I got to meet a couple of them. Shout out to everybody who I met, including Jack Mack from Barstool Sports. He was really cool. He was there covering everything leading up to the fight, and then I think he went to the fight on behalf of DraftKings. He wasn't in the he didn't cover the fight as media, I'm pretty sure. But he was great to meet, and then obviously Full Send MMA, shout out OG. He was there, and then a couple local people were there too. Shout out to the guys from WGN Radio. They were cool. And then obviously there was me, and I'm pretty sure out of the group chat, we're in like an internal MMA media group chat. I think I was the only one out of the, I guess, independent media. Even though I am with an outlet, I do consider myself mostly independent and doing my own thing. I think out of all the independent media, I think I was the only one to cover the event. So that I'm very grateful for. I'm not going to show you kind of the things that you get as media just for privacy reasons. I'd rather not do that, but I can tell you that you get wristbands for access through the first few days, and then you get a credential on fight night, and you get placed based on what credential you get. Um, and that is very interesting as well. I'll admit this on here too. I've done one, and I still don't fully understand how they determine where everybody goes. But it is what it is. Um, but anyway, that was Wednesday. Let's get into Thursday now, though. I feel like I'm boring you guys. Thursday is the fun day because every Thursday of a pay per view fight week is a pre fight press conference. This one was a huge one. This one had every fighter on the main card, including the main event of the prelims, which had a crazy switch up. Baysanger, Suzurkayev, who won in the Contender Series, took a fight on 4 days' notice against Eric Nolan, and won in impressive fashion. But what was interesting was, for the first time in I don't know how long, he was included in the press conference, which was very cool. You usually don't see guys on the prelims get included in the press conference. So that was very unique. Um, and then from there, you basically just go in and you ask questions. Um, and off of that, essentially, you can use any of that stuff for content also. So I used my clip, obviously, that everybody saw. That one was, of course, of me asking Dana how stylistically the fight between Dricus du Plessis and Hamza Chimaev would play out, which, of course, it played out as an extremely heavy wrestling match of sorts, and a pretty interesting display there. Chimaev dominated du Plessis for 25 minutes at large, and of course won the UFC middleweight championship. But that was the viral clip that everybody has seen now. People are still liking it. Even at the time that we're recording this, it has a ridiculous amount of views. I think it's over 18,000 views now. So shout out to everyone that watched that clip. And obviously I went into this on my recent edition of Bando's Blitz, but it made Reddit, and it also made MMA Guru's press conference recap video, which was very interesting and surprising. And I also was a part of the thumbnail, which was extremely shocking, and I couldn't believe it. So there was that as well. So basically, that was that, and of course, I put the reel out, and of course, people are still liking it. So really, covering that is essentially kind of similar. You just go in and you go to the media section, and they have like an order of questions. So there's a bit of a hierarchy. So MMA Junkie and MMA Fighting and Mac Life go first, and then everybody else goes after that based on the questions you have. So I was third or fourth up, and that's the question I asked. And the press conference moved on. And yeah, I mean that was essentially it. And again, shout out to everyone who interacted with it, commented on it, DM'd me after the fact. It was cool. It was very very cool just to see the support off that. And then Friday was the weigh-in. Not much really there. I recorded a bunch of footage for it. Didn't really do anything in regards to like stories about the weigh-in or anything. But I, of course, as you guys know, if you follow my work over at On Sports Illustrated, you saw I did live results. You saw I did a pre-fight press conference piece. I did a how to watch piece, and then of course I did individual fights on fight nights. Speaking of fight night, let's get to fight night. So you go in and you're basically you check in and you're escorted by UFC staffers, and they take you to where your credential says. So I got access to what was called the press ledge, which is essentially the United Center press box. Due to some limitations, I was moved off that into a section of the United Center, and I also had access to the media room. Some people had access to the media floor seating, and then other people only had access to the media room. I don't know how you would only get access to just the media room, but that was also like an option for those that just wanted the media room, I guess. So there was that. So you got your access there, and then you basically do what you want during fight night. There's rules that you follow and stuff, but for the most part, though, um, fight night related things, basically you just do your assigned work. The UFC doesn't really tell you what to do. As long as you're doing stuff, you're basically good. So I was doing stuff all night. I had a live results piece going. I had stories going. I had a bunch of stuff going on. And then I was able to meet some notable people: Dustin Poirier, Chael Sonnen, to name a few. And then, of course, in the media room is where all the fighters come back when they win. Each fighter comes back, assuming he or she passes medicals, to do their post fight media scrum. So that's kind of how that works. So some people chose to stay out there all night. Other people chose to stay in the back. Some people did a little bit of both, but a lot of people stay in the back because they need to edit video and they need to get it up right away to social, and they have no other way to do it if they have nothing to film because they can't film in the arena itself. They can only take pictures of what's being seen in front of them for anything that isn't during the fight. That's kind of how that goes. Anyway, off that though, basically that's what people did. I was in the media room for much of the event. I did come out for the main event though to my seat because that was important for me to see the main event in front of me. Um, and yeah, the fans were ruthless because I was basically in the section that was designated for fans. But overall, though, it was very interesting. It was a unique experience, and definitely one I won't forget. Got to ask the newly crowned middleweight champion Hamza Chimaev a question. That was very cool as well. And yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was a good week. Got a lot of content. 14th live UFC in the books. My first is media. I can't complain. Back in my hometown for the first time since 2019. Shout out to everyone for all the gear, though. Full send, full violence, and then of course I did get. This was my own purchase, but I did get a UFC shirt that was the event T-shirt, which is actually quite cool. I'm not wearing it right now. I'm wearing a football shirt, but shout out to everyone for all the gear. You guys were awesome, and then of course shout out to all the people on social. You guys are unbelievable, and you guys really did make my entire week very special. So there's that. Not to drag this on too long, let's get into more topics as we speed this up. MLB TV rights. This is very interesting. It looks like the MLB is going to go through some transitional periods here in regards to their TV coverage. So let's get into this a little bit more. Um, let's get into this a little bit more. Here is Major League Baseball. So MLB TV rights. Here we go. So Apple TV is fully out of the picture. This is for next season. So no more Friday Night Baseball. NBC is going to be covering Major League Baseball for Friday night and Sunday. Exclusive games, including the wild card game, and MLB TV is being sold to ESPN for a bunch of money, and of course, Netflix is getting the home run derby. This is very interesting because Major League Baseball is spreading the wealth. They're becoming another league where you can see it across multiple networks. This is gigantic news because now, in order to be an MLB fan, you need Peacock, you need ESPN, whatever their D2C service, which actually just came out yesterday. Because at the time that we're recording this, it launches tomorrow. So that should be very interesting to see what happens with that. And then, of course, Netflix, of course. So you need a bunch of stuff, and ESPN again, just like they did with the NFL in recent weeks, they're buying rights to another league. So I guess congratulations to them. It's going to be a lot more interesting being an MLB fan now because you need all of these services to watch the product, unlike the UFC, where next year it'll be all on Paramount. So, very interesting stuff from an MLB standpoint. A lot of controversy surrounding this, but shout out to Kendall Baker for getting this scoop here. Huge, huge news. And according to the tweet, it's close to being done per sources. So, very, very big deal there from an MLB standpoint. And then, of course, Jeremiah Smith was a guest on a recent edition of the Triple Option podcast with Urban Meyer and Rob Stone. And let's put it to you straight, guys. He hates the Michigan Wolverines because, of course, he does. He's Ohio State's biggest star at present, is entering his sophomore season, still has yet to beat Michigan. Of course, they lost last year in the final game of the regular season, which if they would have won, they would have been in the Big Ten championship, representing one half of the Big Ten. More than likely, it would have been against Oregon, and who knows who would have won that game. But it's clear that this year's Michigan-Ohio State game is personal, and he simply described it in one way. He goes, I hate him. Hate is the one word that comes to mind for Jeremiah Smith. So that game in late November, Thanksgiving weekend, is going to have tons of heat on it. So shout out to Jeremiah Smith for already getting the blood pumping as we get closer and closer to the beginning of college football season. And then before you know it, getting closer and closer to the ultimate week in college football, which is rivalry week, where, of course, this game will take place center stage from Ann Arbor only on Fox. So there you go. There's a mini promo for Michigan, Ohio State. Speaking of Michigan, Bryce Underwood recently turned 18. Shout out to him. And yeah, I mean, it's clear that he is going to be BMOC in Ann Arbor very quickly if he isn't already. And he got his teammates a unique gift thanks to all the NIL money that he's been earning, obviously. And he got all of them headphones. So shout out to Bryce Underwood for gifting his whole team headphones. Those will be put to good use for sure during road trips and whatnot, to and from games. Should be a really, really fun time for those guys as Underwood is really getting used to the college experience. It should be an interesting season for Michigan. Not really sure how it's going to go, from a win-loss standpoint. But man, Bryce Underwood being the face of Michigan football is going to be very, 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 very interesting. So I'm excited to see how it all plays out. They have an interesting schedule. That week 2 game against Oklahoma is one to circle. And then, of course, at the end of the year, as I alluded to in the last segment, Ohio State. Um, Final game of the year, Thanksgiving weekend. Could that determine who goes to the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis? That remains to be seen. All right, let's talk some more UFC. UFC 319. Hamza Chimaev is the new UFC middleweight champion, beating Dricus du Plessis by unanimous decision in a very one-sided fight. Wrestling was the key in this fight. DDP could not stop Chimaev no matter how much he tried to do so. Chimaev was able to do whatever he wanted to the now former champion, stifle his attacks on the feet and just take him down at will. I think it was a total of 12 takedowns in the fight itself. But overall, though, congratulations to Hamzat. He stakes his claim as one of the best in the sport. And speaking of, let's take a look at the newest edition of the pound for pound rankings to really see how this stacks up here, because he has some huge challengers on his hands that I think a lot of people are going to be very, very keen on, on paying attention to. So that'll be interesting as well. Let's take a look at these rankings though while we're at it really quick. So pound for pound, Ilia Topuria is number 1. Hamza Chimaev moves up 10 spots to number 4, only behind Merab Dvalishvili and the soon to be more than likely UFC welterweight champion Islam Makhachev. Looking at the rest of the top 10, Alexandre Pantoja at number 5, Volkanovski at number 6. Some of these rankings are off here. Tom Aspinall should be higher than he is too. Volk is at 6, Ankalaev is at 7, JDM at 8, Aspinall at 9, and Alex Pereira, who fights Ankalaev in October, is at number 10. So huge shakeup in the pound for pound rankings. Dricus du Plessis drops 7 spots to number 11. Max Holloway, without even fighting, drops 1 spot to number 12. Yeah, some of these rankings to me just don't make any sense. And apparently Shavkat Rakhmonov is in the pound for pound rankings at number 15 after not being ranked last week. So this is some interesting stuff here. I don't know. Some of these rankings to me don't make sense. I feel like the champions should stack the top 10. But I don't know, man. And I feel like Max Holloway, you can make an argument. Max Holloway right now, it should be higher than Alex Pereira simply because Holloway technically has a title at the moment, even though it is the BMF title. He technically has a title at the moment, and Alex Pereira doesn't. So that's also very interesting as well. So I don't know. That's UFC 319, though. I went 7-5. We are at 196 wins for the year. And I guess we move on and we conquer. So the last event in the month of August, UFC Shanghai. Very early start this week, 3 a.m. Eastern for the prelim, 6 a.m. Eastern for the main card. It's going to be an early one. So shout out to all you guys that are planning on staying up or going to bed early and setting an alarm to watch this event. I don't know if a lot of people are going to. This has sort of become a yearly occurrence for the promotion to do an international show in prime time. Are they? I don't know how it's going to go. Let's see here. I don't know how it's going to go. Let's take a look. All right, main event of the evening, 5 rounds. Johnny Walker, Ming Zhang. Main event of the evening here at light heavyweight. Johnny Walker has struggled as of late, going 2-2 with 1 no contest. He is a plus 285 underdog. Zain coming off a dominant win over Anthony Smith and is a huge favorite and minus 395. This one seems like a wash. Johnny Walker is going to be knocked out. I don't think it's going to be a good fight at all. All right. Looking at the co-main event, Brian Ortega against the former champion Aljamain Sterling. I like the experience of Sterling here. Yes, he struggled a little bit as of late, but he is a sizable favorite at minus 305. The comeback on Ortega is plus 250. Yeah, I mean, I think Sterling's wrestling is going to make the difference. I don't think it goes 5 rounds. I think Sterling finishes him in the third or fourth round here. But I don't know. I think it is a chance to be an interesting fight. Some other fights in this card: Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. That'll be an interesting one because someone might get knocked out in that one. 19-3 versus 14-1 on that. Let's take a look here. Pavlovich is 3-2 in his last five. Cortez Acosta has won his last five, currently sitting at 14-1. Somehow is the underdog to Pavlovich, which I don't understand. But should be a good fight. Someone is definitely getting knocked out. If I were a betting person and you need a pick on this one, I would go for this fight not to go the distance, regardless of who wins. And I think that's some free money there, even if it's a plus value. But yeah, that's overall the card though. 12 fights on this one as well. Again, 6 a.m. Eastern, 3 a.m. Pacific for the main card, only on ESPN Plus. You'll be able to watch the whole card on ESPN Plus from Shanghai, China, the last UFC event in August, as they're off next weekend as the start of college football rolls around. So just something to bear in mind. And now we're going to get to the part of the show where you'll get to hear a message from our friends over at Playback, and we'll be back to wrap a few things up. But until then, stay tuned. And if this gets you interested in Playback, be my guest. And as a fair warning, be sure to sign up as our membership continues to grow. Thanks, guys. Just wanted to give a quick timeout in the middle of the show to remind you guys that Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback. I teased it a little bit earlier that there was an announcement coming, and sure enough, without further ado, here we go. Presented by Playback, watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETV Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And with that, we can get back to the show. Thanks again for tuning in to a message from our friends over at Playback again. Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback, the only home where you can watch live sports on screen alongside all of us. If you want to chat with us during a game, etc., playback.tv is the place to do exactly that for various sports, including the NBA, MLB, college basketball, hopefully college football in the future, UFC in the future, and so much more. So stay tuned for all of that moving forward in the coming months and into 2026. Let's move on now and wrap up the end of the show. Only a few more topics to get through. In doing so, one thing that I saw, I'm a fan at the Cubs game the other day, Cubs Brewers, the makeup game on Tuesday afternoon, took out his laptop to signify that A, he might be working, or B, he actually didn't take off work and was joining a meeting, or C, he was checking his fantasy football draft. Either way, this guy is a legend in his own right because he was caught on Marquee Sports Network, and the clip quickly went viral and spread like wildfire across social media. Shout out to whoever that guy was taking his laptop to the Cubs game, holding himself accountable for whatever it was he needed to do in order to fulfill other obligations throughout his day. That guy will live in Cubs lore for a very, very long time, and it'll be interesting to see if anything comes of that guy's viral moment and potentially 15 minutes of fame. So shout out to that guy. That is one thing that I saw. And of course, Zinger, Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis, recently announced earlier this week as an exhibition match at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. This will be on Netflix Friday, November 14th. And there's not much more I can say. This fight is a disgrace to boxing. And will I probably have to watch it? Will I probably have to cover it in some capacity? Yes. It's part of my job. But I can be very transparent with you guys and tell you that I think this fight sucks. Jake Paul is only known really for fighting older fighters that he knows he can beat. Gervonta Davis is one of the best fighters in his division. He's currently going through some legal troubles. He just had a controversial draw against Lamont Roach. That's who he should be really fighting. Not worried about fighting Jake Paul, who's yet to fight a legitimate boxer and beat him. The one legitimate boxer he fought, Tommy Fury, if you want to really call it legitimate, he lost him. That was over 2 years ago now, and since he's only fought UFC veterans or UFC legends throughout the last few years. Just had another dominant performance fairly recently before the Mike Tyson fight. You got to go back to the fights against Mike Perry and the fights against Nate Diaz and stuff. But my point I'm trying to make is that Jake Paul simply doesn't seem like he really wants to take himself all that seriously, and I think that that's really, really disappointing. So, in retrospect, he needs to look himself in the mirror and say, if I don't look good against Gervonta Davis, even though this is an exhibition, should I really be taken seriously? I don't know if that's the case. That all remains to be seen and so much more. But what I can tell you is that fight will be a spectacle. It's live on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, you can get the fight anyway the day before the UFC pay-per-view at Madison Square Garden, which follows on a busy sports weekend across the landscape, including college football. So there's my rant regarding Paul versus Tank, and there's going to be more to come about that in the coming weeks and months. I am sure of it as more info comes out about potentially how this fight may play out and just some of the stipulations around the fight. All right. Zan's errors, we had none this week, so shout out to myself for that, I guess. Clean show is always a good one. So there's that as well. And then, of course, just as a few final quick housekeeping notes, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, please be sure to follow the show across social media at Bando's Breakdown. You can do so on X and Instagram, etc., etc. Would be very much appreciated if you did so there. And then, of course, if you want to subscribe, as we are very, very close to 1,000 subscribers. By the time you listen to this, we may already be at 1,000. YouTube.com/ETV Network is where you'll want to do that. And if you're watching this for the first time, please be sure to give it a like. Please be sure to subscribe. Please be sure also to hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss any of my future episodes of this show or any other show across the network. Would be very much appreciated if you guys did that as well. And just as the final quick reminder too, you can listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're on the go, if you're at work, if you're sipping your morning coffee, if you're about to go out for the evening and need a quick listen that's 30 to 35 minutes and very, very hassle-free, if you will, you can check out my podcast, add it to the RSS feeds, and get notified every single week when a new episode is released. So that's going to do it for episode 57 of Bando's Breakdowns. Again, my name is Zain Bando. This is the last episode in the month of August, so I will see you guys on the episode front in September with a lot more fun stuff to come. But for now, please be sure to keep it locked into socials and on Playback for more great content over the next few weeks. And I will catch you guys during the week of UFC Paris, as well as Illinois' Week 2 showdown against the Duke Blue Devils, in what should be one of the biggest early season college football games that the country will have going forward at that point. But until then, I'm Zain Bando. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.